In Nigerian politics, there is no cruelty quite like the one that does not come from your enemy. The cruelty that stings the most is the kind that comes from your own side, from the platform you trusted, from the party you invested in, from the structure you believed would carry you to the finish line, only to discover, when it mattered most, that the ground beneath it was never solid to begin with. That is the reality one of Nigeria's most experienced and most persistent presidential contenders is now facing. This is a man who has spent years, arguably decades, positioning himself for the Nigerian presidency. A man who has survived political defeats, party changes, and coalition collapses that would have ended lesser political careers. A man whose ambition has never wavered and whose belief in his own capacity to lead this country has remained unshaken through every setback. But what is happening right now has nothing to do with ambition or capacity or political strategy. A court has just made a decision that could remove him from the 2027 race entirely, not through a vote, not through a primary, not through any democratic process whatsoever, but through a legal suit that, if it reaches its conclusion, will wipe out the very platform he is standing on, leaving him with no party, no ticket, and no path forward. And the clock to change that outcome is running out faster than anyone expected. What exactly did the court decide? What does it mean for the ADC? And if this party disappears from the ballot, what does the 2027 presidential race look like? Stay right here. Everything is coming. If you are new here, subscribe right now and turn on your notification bell. Share this video before we continue because what is unfolding in court today will reshape the entire 2027 election. Now, let us get straight into the full details. The African Democratic Congress entered 2025 with enormous promise. The party attracted some of the biggest names in Nigerian opposition politics. Rallies were massive, membership surged. For a brief period, the ADC looked like the platform that would unite Nigeria's fragmented opposition and present the APC with its most serious electoral challenge since 2015. Then the cracks began to appear. Internal leadership disputes consumed the party's energy and attention. Legal battles over the national chairmanship dragged on through multiple court sessions, eating up the time and organizational capacity that should have been spent on building structures and preparing for primaries. The instability at the top filtered down through every level of the party, creating uncertainty that made it increasingly difficult to retain the confidence of politicians and supporters who needed a stable platform to commit to. Peter Obi read the situation early and made his exit. His departure triggered an immediate and massive exodus. Millions of supporters who had joined the ADC because of Obi's presence followed him out the door almost overnight. Active politicians who had aligned with the party under the promise of a strong Obi-led ticket reassessed their positions and began looking for alternative platforms. What was left behind was a significantly weakened structure, still carrying the weight of unresolved legal battles, still divided at the leadership level, and now stripped of the popular momentum that had made it relevant in the first place. Into this fragile environment, a new and potentially fatal legal challenge has arrived. A suit has been filed in court seeking the deregistration of the ADC and several other opposition parties on the grounds that they lack significant electoral presence, meaning they do not currently hold substantial elected positions at the federal or state level. Today, in a development that has sent shockwaves through opposition political circles, the presiding judge sustained the suit. To be clear about what sustaining the suit means, the judge has ruled that the case has merit and will proceed. The ADC's legal team must now mount a compelling argument against deregistration before the court reaches a final verdict. If they succeed, the party survives. If they fail, the ADC ceases to exist as a registered political party, and every candidate running under its platform, including its presidential hopeful, is automatically eliminated from the 2027 race. Sitting at the center of this legal storm is Atiku Abubakar. The former vice president recently made the significant step of picking up his presidential expression of interest form under the ADC platform, a public declaration of his intention to contest the 2027 presidency through the party. It was a moment that signaled his commitment to the ADC, despite its troubles and his belief that the party could still be salvaged in time for the election. That commitment has now become a trap. The deadline for politicians to switch party affiliations and meet INEC's registration requirements has passed. Atiku cannot move to the NDC, he cannot return to the PDP, he cannot join any other platform regardless of what happens to the ADC in court. He is legally and administratively bound to a party whose very existence is now being argued before a judge. If the ADC is deregistered, Atiku does not simply lose his preferred platform, he loses everything. Years of preparation, network building, financial investment, and political positioning, all of it rendered irrelevant not by a better candidate or a stronger campaign, but by a court ruling on a party registration dispute. The ADC spokesperson and several party officials have continued to allege that the forces behind these legal challenges are not acting independently. The consistent pattern of suits, adjournments, and institutional pressure targeting the party has led many within the ADC to conclude that a coordinated effort allegedly connected to the ruling administration is deliberately being used to keep the party in permanent legal paralysis until it is too late to recover. Whether that allegation can be proven in court is a separate matter. What is undeniable is the effect. Every court date, every adjournment, every fresh legal challenge has consumed time that the ADC desperately needed to conduct its primaries, stabilize its leadership, and demonstrate to INEC that it is a functioning political organization capable of participating in a national election. Time that has now largely run out. For Atiku personally, this situation represents perhaps the most painful chapter of a presidential pursuit that has spanned multiple election cycles. He has lost presidential elections before. He has switched parties before. He has rebuilt and repositioned himself before. But those previous setbacks all left him with options, new platforms, new alliances, new paths toward the presidency. This time, the options have been closed off one by one, and if the court delivers a final deregistration order against the ADC, there will be no path left to navigate. The 2027 presidential race would then reduce to a direct contest between two men, Bola Tinubu of the APC, defending a record that has generated significant public anger over economic hardship, insecurity, and institutional manipulation, and Peter Obi of the NDC, leading a movement that has demonstrated remarkable resilience, cross-regional appeal, and the kind of organic grassroots energy that no amount of government advertising can manufacture. In that scenario, the electoral mathematics shift dramatically. The northern votes that Atiku commands the loyalists who have followed him through party after party and election after election do not simply vanish from the equation. They redistribute. A portion will remain with the APC out of regional calculation or patronage ties. But a significant number, particularly those motivated primarily by a desire to end APC governance regardless of who replaces it, will look for an alternative. Peter Obi and the NDC, with Kwankwaso's northern network providing crucial grassroots infrastructure across the northwest, are positioned to absorb a meaningful share of that redistributed vote. Combined with Obi's existing strength in the south and his growing appeal among young urban voters nationwide, a two-man race against a deeply unpopular incumbent creates conditions that are genuinely favorable for the opposition. The NDC is aware of this. The pace of the party's convention preparations, its membership drive, and its candidate engagement activities all reflect an organization that is building with the seriousness of a movement that believes it is heading toward a winnable election. For ordinary Nigerians watching all of this unfold, the emotions are complex. There is frustration at a political system that seems to consume its own participants before they ever reach the point of genuine service. There is anger at the possibility that legal mechanisms are being deliberately weaponized to narrow the field of competition. There is sympathy for the millions of Nigerians who supported the ADC and now find themselves politically homeless through no fault of their own. But there is also something else, something that refuses to be extinguished regardless of how complicated the political landscape becomes. There is determination. Nigerians who have obtained their PVCs, who are following these developments closely, who are having conversations in markets and offices and group chats about what 2027 must deliver. These are not people who are giving up. They are people who understand that the obstacles being placed in the path of opposition politics are themselves a sign of fear. A ruling party that is confident in its public support does not need to deregister opposition parties. It does not need to sponsor internal crises. It does not need institutional maneuvers to stay relevant. It simply governs well and lets the results speak.